Bespoke radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network.
All right. Good evening, Fade to Black. How you doing? How you doing? Today's Thursday. Wrapping up my week. It is June 6th, 2024. I'm your host, Jimmy Church, and I got some breaking news. Tonight is show number 1999. That's right. 1,999 shows in the can. Well, as soon as we finish this one tonight with Eric Altman. And what a better way to close out the 1900s than with Bigfoot and Cryptids. Big feats and Cryptids tonight with Eric Altman. Very excited about the show. We've had an amazing week on Fade to Black, and that DMT show on Monday with Andrew Gallimore was just fascinating. And then Tuesday night with Freddie Levy, just mind-blowing. Last night, Susie Hansen, smoking show. And then we're going to close it out tonight with Eric Altman, and I'm very excited. I don't do as many Bigfoot shows as I should. And it's funny because most of you that have been with me over the years, you see these flows that I go through. And it seems like there were times when I would do a month of Bigfoot, right? I would do a month of Bigfoot, a month of dreams, a month of, and Bigfoot is one, and cryptids. It's just one of those subjects that is huge. It's huge. And I know it seems strange for somebody like me to say, because I cover all this, I cover all the subjects. It's probably bigger than UFOs. And the idea and the suggestion of that, then, well, why isn't Congress, talking about Bigfoot? Well, they should. And maybe there's a reason they are not. But the Bigfoot community is ginormous, and I need to cover it more on the show, but we're going to do it tonight. And then, like I said, we are celebrating the closeout of the 1900s, and we are going to do that tonight with Eric. And then Monday is show number 2000. I've got some special guests, and we're going to celebrate and just have some fun on Monday night. And we're going to do this once every 5 years. The next one will be show number 3000. And there's some of you out there are already calculating. Okay, well, at the rate of, it looks like it's going to be June 2029. So anyway, nonetheless, Monday will be show number 2000. Today's Thursday. It's my last day of the week. I've got a full weekend of stuff in front of me. But yes, tonight indeed is my Friday. I really quick before I get Eric in here, there are a couple of things that I want to mention really quick. And that is, there's a couple of movies coming out that look really, really good. And we've got a new Alien movie coming out, and that's going to be released in August. And then next month, we've got a movie coming out. It's going to hit theaters first. It was originally supposed to just go on Hulu. That is dealing with the moon landing hoax. Yeah. Scarlett Johansson. Yeah, man, this is like a major studio release. And it just makes me think that we get our information through Hollywood, right? That's what I feel like. And the last thing I wanted to mention really quick is I caught the first two episodes of The Acolyte on Disney. Star Wars, not quite an extension of Mandalorian, but The Acolyte. And dealing with, now this takes place between Star Wars 1 and 2, allegedly. So I'm trying to figure that part out, or, I've got the timeline off. But the exciting news is it's pretty good. And I think the reason for that is no Jon Favreau. That's right. I said it. I said it. I never do stuff like that, but I said it. I think it's so good. And I was like, and I get to the end of the first episode, I was like, man, that was really good. I like that. I like the writing. I like the direction. I like everything about it. I like the casting. This is really good. I'm watching the credits. Oh, no Favreau. Oh, that explains everything. Yeah, now we don't have to see him do his director's commentary. Okay. All right. So The Acolyte, check that out. Let's get straight into the show. Very excited about tonight. Eric Altman is with us. He has been investigating and researching Bigfoot, Big Feet, and cryptids for almost 30 years around the country, but he centers around the Chestnut Ridge area in Pennsylvania. He is a cryptozoologist. He's a paranormal enthusiast, specializing in Bigfoot. He's the founder and director of the Pennsylvania Cryptozoology Society and the Pennsylvania Bigfoot Society's executive director. He co-hosted Beyond the Edge Radio for 12 years and has investigated over 300 Bigfoot sightings nationwide. He organized the East Coast Bigfoot Conference for 12 years, from 2000 to 2011, and the Pennsylvania Bigfoot Camping Adventure, which is ongoing since 2016. That's right. Now, he has appeared on Travel Channel's Paranormal Declassified and Discovery Plus's Fright Club. And, of course, he has contributed to books and articles and all that other stuff. And I would like to welcome for the first time to Fade to Black, the one and only Eric Altman. Eric, I'm excited about the show, man. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me on, Jimmy. It's a real honor to be with you here on show number 1999.
Can you believe that, man?
Good for you.
I mean,
congratulations.
That's great. Okay, let's get the first time guest disclaimer out of the way, and then we'll move on before I space it. After 1,999 shows, you would think that I wouldn't space it, but I still do. So, first time guest disclaimer, Eric, it's just you and I sitting on my couch having a conversation as friends, and where that conversation starts, it starts. Where it ends, but we're going to end as friends. You have to accept.
Absolutely.
Okay, man, that was easy. That was easy. 1,999 shows, and you. This is great because you've done radio for a long time. So now we can do kind of host to host thing, and I can take the night off. I can just ask you one question and go get some coffee. But you know what it takes with television and radio and media. And for most people out there that are doing a show a week, right? Whatever, streaming, podcasting, whatever, that's a lot. But that's only 52 shows a year. You'll never get to 2,000 in a lifetime, right? It's like, how do you get to that kind of number? It's insane to me. And then you throw in everything else, but it just creeps up on you. And the next thing you know, you've hit this milestone. It's nuts, man. And just like you, I'm going to say this first. The only way to get things done, 300 plus Bigfoot research expeditions and everything else, is to keep your foot on the gas, right? You can't break up the band. You break up the band is never going to go anywhere. You've got to keep your foot on the gas, right?
Yeah. That seems the way that it is for me, because I've tried to take a break from it because it can be almost an obsession at points, and it can get involved in the way of your family life and personal life. So I've tried to take breaks over the years here and there, and it sucks you right back in, and you're right back at it again, full force.
How does your we'll get straight into Bigfoot, but this is just host to host. Let me ask you this. So you go to a party, you're hanging out with your friends, Thanksgiving dinner, whatever it is, and you walk in. Are they like, oh, here comes Mr. Bigfoot? Okay, here he is, Mr. Bigfoot. Is it like that, or do they kind of respect what you're doing?
My family, they kind of respect it. My sister's a paranormal investigator. She has been for a long time. So, I mean, my whole family pretty much does it. My brother-in-law is involved in it. I do it. My son's gone out in the woods with me on investigations. So, yeah, it's kind of like a family thing. There's no disrespect or no Mr. Bigfoot. I used to be known, and probably more by my friends, as Mr. Bigfoot. You know, when they see me, what are you doing this weekend? You going out in the woods, or you heading to the mountains, and that doesn't bother me. I mean, they do it with, tongue in cheek, kind of a good laugh type of thing. So it's all in good fun, and they have respect for what I do.
What do you call? We have a slang out here on the West Coast. You're in Pennsylvania. Do you guys call it squatching? What do you call it when you go out and have a paranormal weekend?
I really don't have a term for it. Some people call it squatching here in the East Coast too. I mean, that caught on when Finding Bigfoot came out. We're going squatching, and it kind of stuck. And we just go out to the woods. What are you doing this weekend? Heading to the mountain, heading to the forest, that kind of thing.
What do you think? With that much knowledge and research behind you, have you come to any conclusions?
No.
Isn't that wild? Isn't that wild?
I said this before in a documentary film I was included in. It's like a rabbit hole. Once you start down, you don't know where it's going to end up, and it just seems to have twists and turns, and things change, or you're introduced to other aspects of the phenomenon. It becomes stranger and stranger the longer you're involved with it.
I've always been on the fence. I'm more on the other side of the fence now with Bigfoot, but I used to be kind of like right in the middle, right? I could have swung in either direction. And then I saw myself with my own eyeballs, my first set of Bigfoot prints, right? In the middle of this field, found by some kids. So we won't get into that. But I got to tell you, when I walked up and saw this, my hair stood up. It was my brain didn't work right. It just, and I don't know about you, but I'm 6 foot, 200 pounds. Okay. And I'm standing there looking at this fresh set of prints. There were 4, and in the ground about 2 inches, about this big, right? Toes, everything perfect, with the grass all crunched in, and I'm not making a dent, right? I'm not making a dent. I'm standing right where it's at, and you can see that it's fresh. And that was the most confusing thing to me, because now I'm thinking about height and width and girth and weight and what could make this impression, and that it's physical. It was a paradigm shift for me, for real. Now it tilted me a little bit further. I didn't fully jump in, but that was pretty amazing to see.
Oh yeah, I've been in the same situation myself. First time I found tracks, somebody called me. They said they discovered a set of footprints in the Chestnut Ridge, and I went to investigate and saw them. I was like you. I was on the fence, and I still am on the fence. I've never actually seen a Bigfoot, but I was on the fence. Could this thing be real? Could it be just imagination, misidentification, a hoax? There's obviously so many questions. But when I saw my first set of tracks, and they did not look like they were made from cookie cutter footprints, I had to take a step back. I was like, the hair on the back of my neck stood up, and I was like, maybe this thing really is real. And after almost 30 years now, I've seen several tracks on a few different occasions throughout those 30 years. And every time I do, I get that same thing. It's like, oh my gosh, maybe this thing really is real. These tracks are being left by something, and they don't look like they're fake or they're bare human footprints. Something large made these impressions and footprints in the ground. And if something's leaving this footprints, that means something's out there. So Yeah, it's kind of, it brings your whole world crashing down on you when you realize that maybe this thing it really is real and it's out there and people are finding tracks and having sightings, and these sightings, they may not be all hallucinations and imagination and misidentifications. Maybe there is really something to this.
Now, there's probably a few different classifications that we can look at here. An undiscovered species, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's like number one. Number two could be ET jumping off a flying saucer. I don't know, right? Three could be interdimensional. Could be interdimensional. Could be a ghost of Neanderthal, right? It could be that. But it's all of these at the same time too, as well. And we're chasing what we think is a species at one moment, but it's actually something else totally interdimensional. But if it's interdimensional, leaving footprints, that means it has the ability, at least momentarily, to go physical. So what do you think? Are we looking at all of these or maybe just one?
It's hard to say. There are so many different varying opinions of what this thing is. And unfortunately, we don't have a live specimen or even a dead one for that matter to say, okay, this is what it is. We know for sure. So there's a lot of speculation. A lot of people hypothesize about what Bigfoot is. If it is a flesh and blood animal, which I tend to lean in that direction, I think it's something that broke off the hominid chain as we developed from primate into human, and it became its own species and continues to develop and breed and, exist. But there are people that think it's interdimensional because there are footprints that suddenly end for no reason. They don't continue on. People have claimed that they've seen Bigfoot dematerialize right in front of them. People have actually, I know of reports from the 1970s where people claim they've seen a Bigfoot walking off the ramp of a UFO. So there are all kinds of possibilities that people throw out there. I don't know if any of them are correct or all of them are correct. It's hard to say, but my leaning is towards this actually being a species that we just haven't discovered yet.
Anything is possible. Anything is possible.
Right.
Chewbacca is real, though. So so you have that part. Okay, now the disappearing part is something that I've experienced myself. Okay, so the 4 sets of prints that I saw with a group of friends, there was a bunch of us there, and luckily we had Jason Quitt was there with his documentary film setup and crew, and we were able to capture it. But anyway, it was right, left, going in an arch, and they were about 6 feet apart, right? And that was the other thing that kind of blew my mind, was the size of the stride, because I could only step about halfway. I mean, full stretch out stride, I was only getting halfway to the next print. And like I said, you start to visualize what we're talking about here. But here's the trippy thing. We had a large group of people, right? We cordoned off the area, and we got a search party out looking for more prints, because we thought, right? Okay, so they came from the woods over there and came out. No, we didn't. And at the end of the 4, they just stopped, and it was like in an arch and then stopped. So whatever it was dropped out of the sky or whatever, right? It made these 4 prints and then is now gone again. That doesn't, I sound crazy when I say that, but how many times have you had that exact same situation?
Last month.
Right.
The same thing happened to me. I got an email sent to our website, the Pennsylvania Bigfoot Society's website, and it came from a gentleman who's a lifelong hunter, and he and 3 of his friends were out scouting an area for turkey. Turkey season, spring gobbler season was about to kick off for the youth, so they were out scouting, and he and his friends came across a mud pit on an ATV trail, and there were 4 large barefoot human print, not human, I shouldn't say, but large bare footprints that just walked across this mud pit on this trail. And he contacted us. I called him, talked to him. He invited us to come out. We were out there 2 days later, and sure enough, in this mud pit were 3 of the 4 tracks that he discovered. One of them was washed out by a rainstorm the night before, but 3 of the tracks were still remaining, pristine condition. We were able to cast those tracks, and I've had Dr. Jeffrey Meldrum look at them, Cliff Barrickman from Finding Bigfoot look at them. Both agree that they're legit tracks. But what's odd, like you mentioned, there were 4 prints. There weren't a beginning to them. There weren't an end to them, just 4 that crossed this mud pit. And we, as researchers, my research partner Tom and I, we searched, almost a mile in each direction through the forest to try to find additional tracks, and we could find nothing. Now, the ground, in all fairness, I have to say the ground was hard and a lot of leaf clutter and a lot of fallen branches and limbs, but still there should have been impressions in the ground or something to show signs of an animal walked through that direction. And we couldn't find anything. Just those 3 tracks that were left after the 4 were discovered. And I have no explanation for it. I mean, maybe it was because the ground was so dry, but it rained, so I don't know. I don't have an explanation for it.
How big were they?
15 inches long by 7 inches wide across the ball of the foot.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's about the size of what I saw. I think 18 inches, and I don't know, maybe that wide, like you're saying, about 7-8 inches wide. And you could see the toes. I could see the arch. It was like this perfect thing, and it was deep. So I just don't know. I don't know how the impression was made. The same observations that you're making there. The ground was hard packed, but maybe it's a little more moist at night, right? So maybe this happened at night, and it was easier to make something that deep. I don't know, but there wasn't anything before, and there wasn't anything after. And none of us that were standing around it were doing any disturbance at all to the ground. And that's the crazy part. When we look at it in these terms, is it possible? I mean, again, these are all just theories and hypotheses, but is it a portal? Right? Is it something that they're around? They're like in my backyard right now, but we're just not seeing them. And then they have the ability to just for that second, maybe not become, or maybe that would be interdimensional as a definition. I'm not sure, but I'm just wondering if it's just a species that is just living with other species around us all the time.
That's a great question. I wish I could answer for you, but who knows? Who knows where these things go or where they come from? When I looked at these tracks on the ground, people were asking me, how do you know they weren't faked by the hunters who claimed they discovered them? Well, you could see the toes actually moving in the ground. They were in different positions on each step. Like, for example, the big toe was kind of off to the right, and the 4 smaller toes were kind of splayed open because of the mud on one print, but the next print they were in a different direction and different angles. So they looked like they were made by a living foot, something that really truly possesses a foot that can make them not a mold or a silicone mold of a footprint or somebody with a stomper on a boot. They looked real. And
well, isn't that exactly the point? If you and I walk through the mud, are we going to have 2 identical footprint? No,
probably not.
No, no, that would be a mathematical improbability. There's just no way that would happen.
Right.
Now, what about physically hearing things? I know that you said okay, so let's get into that for a second, because again, now we're going possibly from interdimensional back into the physical world where these things can happen. You say that you haven't had an actual sighting. Very few people have, and that's fine. But how close have you gotten, and have you heard things?
I've heard a lot of weird things out in the forest. I don't hunt anymore, but I did hunt for about 25 years. I have some outdoor experience. I camp, I fish. So I'm not an expert when it comes to wildlife sounds by any means, but I'm pretty familiar with what a coyote sounds like, owls, your typical forest nightlife. And I've done that by being out in the woods, for over 30 years, investigating and just going out there proactively and spending time in the woods. So I've become accustomed to what animal sounds typically are in the area. And there have been times when I've heard things that make my skin crawl. Loud howls that just go on for 10 to 15 seconds, guttural roars, screeches, even primate whooping type sounds that I've heard, things that just don't sound like they belong where I'm at. And I've been fortunate enough to capture some of these sounds on recording. I put digital recorders out, parabolic mics, and I've been lucky enough to capture some of these sounds. And I've had them listened to by other people in the field, other wildlife experts, wildlife biologists, who've told me it's not a canine, it's not a deer, it's not a fox, it's not an owl, your typical wildlife. It's something that they've never heard before or can explain. And when you're out there in the forest, it's dark, you're out there with one or two other people, and you hear this thing and it's close by. It's not, coming from a different valley or different mountain range. It's close by. It can be unnerving because you're out there with something that's could be twice the size of you. It could be 7 to 8 feet tall, 400 or 500, 600 pounds, and probably could squash you like a grape. So it can be unnerving. I've heard them all over Pennsylvania. I've been out the Pacific Northwest, Washington State, Oregon, California. I've heard things out there. I've heard things in the Gulf Coast states. When I was in Texas back in 2005, I heard a scream come out of Caddo Lake that just made me stop in my tracks. So there's things out there that are making some really weird noises. I can't say honestly that they were Bigfoot because I didn't see the animal make the noise, but there's some weird animals out there making some crazy sounds.
Is there any state that hasn't had a Bigfoot sighting?
As far as I'm aware, no. For a while, it was thought Hawaii and Rhode Island were the only two states that didn't have Bigfoot sightings, but they actually do have reports being recorded and documented in those states.
Rhode Island is a state?
Yeah.
I'm kidding. Just kidding.
Barely.
Yeah. How to offend your audience, church. Just go right there. Yeah. Well, I'm glad Rhode Island made it in. It's that's another part that I'm fascinated with. You can go to just about any town in any state, and they have their own monster that they have a festival for each year.
Yeah, that's becoming really popular now. They're celebrating the Grafton monster or the Flatwoods monster or the Jersey Devil or the Squonk here in Pennsylvania. There's a Squonk festival. Of course, I host the Pennsylvania Bigfoot Camping Adventure every couple of years. So there's festivals all over the country honoring cryptids, not just Bigfoot, but all types of cryptids.
Yeah, skunk ape, skunk man, boggy man, bog man. It's like everybody has got their, and so when you look at it like that, people are seeing something, they are experiencing something, and it's not a modern phenomenon. This goes back millennia. This is nothing new, is it?
No, I have newspaper articles that date back to the 1700s that talk about people experiencing wild men or strange and unusual creatures. So it's not a phenomenon. Even the Native American lore goes back hundreds of years. This isn't a phenomenon that started in the 1950s or 60s. This has been going on for hundreds and hundreds of years. And it's not just a North American phenomenon. It's a global phenomenon. These reports or sightings are happening all over the world. Different countries have different names for their creatures. Like Australia, for example, has the yowie, and China has the yeren, and the almasty from Russia. So all these countries around the world have their own different types of creatures that they talk about or get sighting reports, and so it's a global phenomenon that's been going on for a long, long time.
Was the Patterson Gimlin film just pure dumb luck?
Yes.
Right?
Yep. Absolutely. I'm friends with Bob Gimlin. He was one of
Nice
the
guy.
participants. Heck of a
Nice
nice guy. He and Roger just happened to be at the right place at the right time. Now, they knew that there were sightings and footprints being discovered in that area of Bluff Creek. There have been other researchers in the area that have found tracks prior to them having the film, and even a couple of years before, Roger Patterson was discovering tracks in that area. So they knew there was something in that area. That's why they went to that area to spend some time there camping and searching. They just happened to be at the right place at that creek when they rounded that fallen log and startled that female Bigfoot, and the rest is history.
I've been up there, and I spent a lot of time in that area, all the way from Northern California through Oregon and into Washington up to the Canadian border. And most people, especially when you see the Patterson Gimlin film, because it's a film, there is a misconception that this is like close to civilization, or that there's, no, this is as remote and rugged as any place that you can imagine. It is out in the middle of nowhere, and which is what Northern California all the way to Washington is. And it's the same thing with Pennsylvania. Right? People think of Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, but they don't realize that a large chunk of Pennsylvania is unpopulated forest.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's once you get out of the major cities, and there's several major cities in Pennsylvania, but once you get out of the major cities, you're running into miles and miles of forest land. We've got the Allegheny National Forest up in the northwestern part of the state. North central Pennsylvania up into the Poconos is all forested area. Even in most of the states forested. I couldn't give you the exact acreage of forest, but a lot of it is. I know the area where I live, I'm a couple miles from the forest. So, I mean, it's right out my back door. And Pennsylvania is not just a state of cities, and it has a lot of small towns, a lot of forested area. There's a lot of recreation for folks to do here in Pennsylvania, which involves being in the outdoors. That's a big draw for people.
Yeah, you've got Lancaster, right, and Philly, and then 90% of the state in the middle is nothing, right? And then you have Pittsburgh on the other side. That's about it, man. There's plenty of places for Bigfoot to hide, and that includes Ohio. New Jersey is the exact same situation. People think of New Jersey, they think of Manhattan. That's not New Jersey. No, go out on the New Jersey Turnpike and just head across the state and into Pennsylvania, and just it's nothing but forest. And you have to ask yourself, I wonder if a human has ever set foot in there. And chances are, if you want to hide, you've got a place to hide, don't you?
Absolutely. Yeah, there's a lot of forested area in the East Coast. You've got the Appalachians running from upper New York all the way down to almost to Florida, Georgia and Florida. There's just so many remote areas in Pennsylvania. You're right. You could hide for probably a long time and not be found if you wanted to.
Many have. Many have. Tell us about Chestnut Ridge.
Well, Chestnut Ridge is the furthest western ridge in the Laurel Highlands, or the Appalachians, before it kind of goes into the big city of Pittsburgh and some of the suburbs. It begins in Indiana County and rolls southwest into Morgantown, West Virginia. So it's about 80 miles long, about 5 to 10 miles wide, and it's a lot. It's dotted with a lot of small coal towns, villages, that sort of thing. Not many big cities along the Chestnut Ridge, but there's forests like you wouldn't believe. And it's very easy for any kind of animal to move up and down through this forested region. We have the Forbes State Forest that runs the length of the Chestnut Ridge. And I've spent most of my life investigating the Chestnut Ridge because it's just so vast and so many strange things happen in the ridge. Like I'm currently working on a book about it, which I'm hoping to get finished in the near future. But there's so many weird things that go on in the Chestnut Ridge. I wouldn't even know where to begin.
And probably not just Bigfoot, but how many Bigfoot sightings are in that area each year?
It's hard to give a number because there are multiple Bigfoot research groups now. Before social media kind of exploded, there was only a handful of Bigfoot researchers. Stan Gordon, longtime UFO Bigfoot researcher, Dr. Paul Johnson, maybe a handful, 5 to 10 maybe. And now there's a whole bunch of groups that have 30, 40 people in them, and they're investigating and they get their own sighting reports. So it's hard to really come up with a number. If I had to guess, based on what we've gotten from the Pennsylvania Bigfoot Society, a dozen, maybe 2 dozen sightings a year that I get and I investigate myself. But again, with the other groups, I couldn't give you a number on it.
What are the okay? Let's get into a couple of controversial areas, which I'm always seeking answers. I'm trying to get to the bottom of this. DNA. I've heard different researchers go, "Oh, we've got DNA evidence." Of course we do. We have that missing page in the federal park ranger guidebook about DNA evidence with the FBI and that Bigfoot is real. And then suddenly that page is magically gone. You can see that page on John Greenwald's The Black Vault. He's got that page from the field manual. Very strange. So it seems that the FBI has done their own DNA analysis. But then there's other groups out there that insist that no DNA evidence has been presented. Where are we with this? What's your thoughts?
Just my opinion, the DNA samples that have been collected, people say that there are people out there who throw it out, we have DNA, but it's not matching anything. That might be true, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's a DNA of a Bigfoot. Because honestly, we don't have a specimen, live or dead, that we can match that DNA against. We don't have something in the database that allows us to match the DNA and say, this is what it is. The only thing we can do with DNA is rule out what it isn't. So if that DNA doesn't match bear, deer, fox, coyote, porcupine, raccoon, we can say, okay, it's DNA from an animal, but we don't know what it is.
Well, you kind of want that, right?
You do.
Yeah, you don't want raccoon DNA,
right?
That would be worthless, right? But if you and I'm agreeing with you here, but then there needs to be that unknown other database. So when you get more DNA that doesn't match anything, well, does it match this unknown DNA? Is somebody centrally collecting this unknown DNA?
Not that I'm aware of. Now, I know there's been several DNA studies done. Dr. Melba Ketchum did a study a few years back, and Dr. Brian Sykes from Oxford University did a DNA study. Both really didn't yield positive results. Dr. Ketchum's DNA study was frowned upon, and it was basically laughed at by the scientific community. A lot of people said there wasn't anything in there to prove Bigfoot, existed from those samples. And Dr. Sykes, his samples really kind of matched known animals, with the exception of a hybrid polar bear that was thought to be extinct that was found, over in Nepal. So other than that, there really hasn't been proven by the studies that have been out there that Bigfoot is real. And I'll be honest, even if there is a DNA database, all it really does is provide information that there are unknown samples being tested and identified as unknown. It doesn't prove it's from a Bigfoot. Who knows what it could be from? If it's marked unknown, it just means that we have an animal out there that hasn't been identified yet. We can't say it's a Bigfoot. We can't say it's a skunk ape or whatever cryptid that you would hope it would be. It just means that there's unknown DNA. And as far as I'm aware, I don't think anybody's keeping record of all these unknown DNA samples that have been tested and resulted with no match.
You would think that at least one university would be interested enough to do just that. Okay, all right, so we've got an unknown. Just send it to us. We'll keep it here, and we'll start to establish a database, and we can see if we can get a trend going here. But the community, the university system, and the professional community, and anthropologists, and the biologists, and chemists, and everything, they don't want to go here. Why is that? You would think, right? I read the other day that in New Jersey, now I didn't know this, in New Jersey in 1980, there was one single nesting pair of bald eagles. Okay, that was in 1980. Today, there is over 260 nesting pairs of bald eagles in every county of New Jersey. Right? So they've taken the bald eagle off of the endangered species list. And I think that's fantastic, right? And it's the bald eagle. It's our nation's symbol. I get that too as well. But if that kind of interest was applied to Bigfoot, we would get somewhere. But there is the set of blinders that nobody wants to touch this. You've got Jeffrey Meldrum, right?
Yep.
And that's about it.
There are some closet, if you want to call them closet scientists, that are interested in the subject but won't come out publicly and say they're looking into it or studying it. I know Dr. Jane Goodall has made reference to, she thinks there's a good possibility that the creature does exist. And there are other scientists who've come along the way, wildlife biologists, paleontologists, primatologists, anthropologists that have come along and said, yes, we think there's something to this and it should be studied by academics, but it's not. And it's left up to amateurs like myself and other researchers across the country to do this, as Jeff Meldrum calls us, we're citizen scientists. We're trying to do the research. We're trying to collect the data and the evidence to support the possibility of this animal so that science will step in, professionals will step in, take over where we've started and really put what's necessary into this study. Unfortunately for the citizen scientists like myself, there's a lot of time and money and effort involved on our own part. We're not funded by any government agency or any university. It's all out of our own pocket. The time is all spent from us. We're not backed by anybody. Unfortunately, a lot of citizen scientists like myself, we're not scientifically trained to properly collect the evidence. We do it through trial and error. We have to learn from either our peers or we reach out to guys that are involved with it, like Jeff Meldrum, and ask for his advice and how to handle collecting data and collecting DNA or whatever. But a lot of the, I'll call it anecdotal evidence or circumstantial evidence that's been collected over the years has been collected by amateurs like myself. And even though we have a good base to build upon, the scientific community just refuses to look at that base and say, okay, well, there's enough footprint cast out there. There's enough hair samples collected. There's enough unknown DNA collected. We need to take a serious look, and they won't. And it's puzzling to me why.
There must be out there, maybe you've seen this evidence, they've got a nest. They've got to have an apartment. Mm-hmm. Right? They've got to have a condo somewhere. Have you seen evidence of a habitat?
I have not personally seen nesting areas myself, but I know the Olympic project out in Washington State, the Olympic rainforest, has discovered nesting like habitats, and they've documented it. They've had Jeff come out and look at it. They've had experienced outdoorsmen, biologists come out and look at it, and they're pretty convinced that those are nesting sites of an unknown animal. It's nothing common in the area would make a nesting site like that. I've seen some strange possible, I don't want to call them huts, but I think maybe a cocoon or maybe like an igloo type of formation has been built. I've seen a couple of them on different properties where I've investigated. I don't know what made it. I've never found any evidence in or around to suggest that a Bigfoot would be using it, but they're just these odd shaped structures that are built out in the middle of nowhere on somebody's property. You know, they say, I found this on my property. I'm like 2 miles into the woods. We go investigate, and sure enough, there's something built, and it looks like it's woven together with hands. It's not just trees falling randomly and building this cocoon or this igloo shaped structure. It's woven together. And I can't say if a Bigfoot did that or not. Maybe a human did trying to hoax us. I don't know, but they look pretty interesting. They're compelling.
What was, I remember seeing the video of, I don't know if they were Boy Scouts or, you know, a couple of adults, and they're out and they find this structure like you're talking about. And they go in, and while they're, and it was kind of long, there was a doorway, and it was pretty efficient, actually, right? It was pretty complete. It was pretty impressive for how it was done. Anyway, so while, you know, like a couple of kids are in there or an adult, they had there's an old video. It's like a VCR camera thing, videotape camera. And then up on the ridge, they see this creature walking across the top of the ridge, and then stop and looked at them for a minute. Pretty, what do you make of that video?
It's compelling.
It is compelling, isn't it?
It's the Marble Mountain footage.
Right. That's it.
It's very compelling. The structure they found, I mean, it could have been made by the Boy Scouts. We can't rule that possibility out, but it's kind of interesting that while they're in there investigating and checking out the structure they find up on the ridge, up on the mountain away from them in the distance, they see a very tall, dark figure ambling across the top of the mountain. and they
acting kind of angry. Was he like flailing his arms?
I think it was just kind of meandering around a little bit from the footage that I've seen, but it's peculiar because they can't, it's so far away, but it looks so big on the video. It's not the best video. It's grainy, and like you said, it looks like it was filmed with a camcorder at a distance. The zoom isn't great, so you can't say for sure what is up on that ridge, but there's something large and dark in color walking across the top of the mountain. It's pretty compelling video, whatever it is.
Outside of the Gimlin film, that's up there. I mean, that's really up there. What's your best guess? And again, you're the professional here, and I'm just trying to gather my thoughts. Why is it that we haven't gotten that definitive piece of footage? We haven't gotten the definitive UFO footage either. So it's not like we're picking on Bigfoot here. We have the same issues with a lot of different things, ghosts, and you know, why after if the UFO community, and I mean this, I'm being very serious, Eric, if the UFO community had a UFO video as good as the Patterson Gimlin film, it would be UFO case closed. It'd be that simple. It really would. Yeah. And so we have we have that with Patterson Gimlin, but it's not Bigfoot case closed. And we haven't gotten another piece of footage as good as that. Why do you think that is?
Well, there's been some pieces of footage that have been collected over the years that's pretty compelling. Not as good as quality as the Patterson Gimlin film, but there has been some footage that's been collected. There's one piece of footage that stuck in my mind that I can see clearly, but the name escapes me at the moment. I apologize. It was filmed up in Washington State, and the Freeman footage. That was filmed in, I want to say, mid-1980s to early 1990s. And it was filmed by a gentleman named Freeman, who had a lot of success getting cast and having experiences seeing the creatures. and he happened to be in the right area at the right time and captures this very large lumbering thing move from one pine tree on the right of the screen across the screen and disappear behind a pine tree. And experts have looked at that and said that they don't believe it's a man in the suit because the arm length proportion's much longer than what a human arm would be.
Okay, I'm pulling up this footage now. Let me take a peek at this. Oh yeah. I remember this. Right. Yeah, that's I'm going to pull this up for everybody so they know what we're looking at. Man, I'm totally no, wait a minute. This is public domain, right? Who gives a crap?
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's okay. Here we go. This is it. Yeah, that's I mean, I remember the first time that I saw this like it was yesterday, and I remember thinking to myself, could that be a bear walking on its hind legs?
No. If you can find a good stabilized clear version of that video, you can clearly see long arms hanging down on the sides of it as it walks. And incidentally, in this footage, Freeman claimed that he actually recorded 3 Bigfoot, the one that walks from right to left, and then at the very end of the footage, he claims he captures a second Bigfoot picking up an infant and walking off into the forest. Now, Freeman, he probably has one of the most interesting cast collections. He passed away, unfortunately, and his son's kind of taken the reins, if you will. But he had a very interesting cast collection, drew a lot of attention from some of the academics who studied the film, studied his cast. According to what Paul had said before he passed away, he was an outdoor forestry worker and really familiar with that area. And there were many encounters that he had in that area. That's why he kept going back. He had several sightings himself, and that's why he was out there with that camera that day and just got lucky and captured that thing. I think that one's more believable than most of the videos that are put out today on YouTube and social media, simply because the footage could be studied on a actual film rather than a digital media platform. So
let me ask you this before the break. Last year there was a video that started making the rounds. You know the video of the mom holding the baby Bigfoot going across the river.
Yeah.
Now, the first time that I saw it, I was like, okay, all right. Hold on a minute here. I think we got something. I do. I think we got so this is pretty good and it's different, right? And then that video just went away. What was there any conclusions from that video? Was it natural? Was it a bear, mama bear carrying a baby bear, or what happened with that video?
I honestly don't know. I'm not sure what happened with. I think it's still out there on YouTube and making the rounds. I don't know if there was ever a conclusion drawn as to what that was in that footage. There are many videos like that on YouTube that hit the mainstream media and become a big sensation for a couple of weeks, and everybody talks about it, and then everybody kind of rules it off as a hoax, or debunks it, or it's a guy in a suit, or it's a misidentification of just a bear on its hind legs, and it goes away. I think that's probably what happened with this one. I don't think anybody particularly debunked it. I think people just said, "Oh, that's interesting. Could it be a Bigfoot?" Yeah, well, okay, let's move on to the next video and see what we see.
Right. Do you remember, you're in Pennsylvania, so you must have been fascinated with this. I don't know, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, the guy in Ohio getting chased by Bigfoot through the woods.
I remember a video coming out from Salt Fork State Park in Ohio where a Bigfoot supposedly charged at him.
Right.
And he took off. I think that was debunked.
Okay. It was a good video.
Yeah, it was interesting, but I think
It
that
was
was
good.
debunked. Yeah, there's
Really?
been some Ohio videos that have come out recently where people have claimed they've captured and they look really good when you first look at them, but then when you get people who really study film and know how to analyze it and pull it apart, kind of debunked it and said it's a guy in a suit or it's a staged video, it's not real. And unfortunately, you know, as I do, with AI out there now and CGI, people can make anything, and so you've got to take what's out there with a grain of salt.
You have to. And I think this is a question, and I just started the question off with I think, not a professional host thing to do. but I think that Bigfoot's sense of us is too heightened. They are able to stay miles away from us, right? Yeah. You take one step closer, you're a mile away. You take one step closer into a mile, and they take one step back.
Yeah.
Right. Do you think it's like that?
Yeah, I personally think that they have such heightened awareness and senses. They can smell us. I mean, we go into the woods wearing cologne and deodorant, and you know, the clothes we wear have detergent on it from washing them. The smells, they smell that. It's not, unless, even if you covered yourself with some kind of scent blocking spray, they're going to hear you. They're going to see you. The forest is their home. It's their living room. It's their bedroom. You know, we're invading their area. So when something foreign comes into your house, you know there's something that shouldn't be there. And I think that's the same thing with these creatures. They know we're there before we even know they're there.
Yeah, it would have to, you know, Eric, we need to wrap our head around one thing. We are not walking 300 miles to the forest. We're driving, right? We're driving. And we're going up the road through the forest in a car. You don't think they know that car is coming up the hill? Yeah. 4-wheel drive, a Jeep, my Jeep with mutter tires on it. Come on, man. They just walk the other way. You know, we're forget about that. Yeah, they would smell me for sure. You can look at me and tell that they could smell me a couple of miles away, but they would hear us coming. Right? Yeah. We would sound like infantry on a battlefield marching up. It would just be so loud to them. And we just don't think like that. The people that listen to these reports and things on why Bigfoot isn't seen, well, think about it in those terms. You know, they're out in the quiet woods, and then a car is coming up 5 miles away up the road. They know it's there.
Yeah, exactly. Yep, they know. They can hear that car door slam. They can hear those tires rolling through the gravel. As soon as we get out, we're not quiet. We're making noise, getting our equipment out of the truck. You know, talking to each other, stinking up the woods. You know, they're gonna know. And like any animal, if you come around a bear or deer, they're probably going to take off in the other direction. Think of how many deer you've seen when you've been out. I think those are, you know, there's millions and millions and millions of deer across this country. And most of the time when they hear us coming, they take off deeper into the forest to get away from us.
Yeah, it's just the way it is. That's such a good point. And that goes with like any wildlife. If you see it, they want to be seen. Right? Yeah. It's too easy for them not to be seen. Before we take a break, and we'll follow up with this when we come back, I want to go squatching. Where do I go? The advice to the audience. Where do I go?
Homework first. Find out where the reports are happening at. See if there's a congregated area where there's a cluster of reports. And if there's an ample food supply, water, coverage, forest coverage, that's a good place to start.
Do you go armed?
I never have. Only when I'm hunting deer, but I haven't hunted for years. But no, I may carry a buck knife or maybe some bear spray, but that's the extent of it.
Bear spray works?
I've never had to use it.
Right. I'm not talking about being armed for Bigfoot, but you've got mountain lions and you've got bears and you've got other things. And if you're going to be out in a remote area, you could encounter anything, especially if you have food and stuff at your campsite, that if something is hungry, they may want to come and get it. That's what I'm saying. So would you go armed? But okay, so a big knife.
Yeah, you can take a knife with you. I mean, it depends on where you are in the country. If you're in the Pacific Northwest, yeah, you have mountain lions, you've got black bear, you got even people you have to worry about. There's some crazy people out there. But if you feel it makes you comfortable to carry something to protect yourself, then by all means, take something with you. I don't have to because we don't have mountain lions here. We have black bear, and I've run into black bear on many occasions. Usually they're running off in the other direction. But if I camp, I don't take a weapon with me unless I absolutely have to.
And what about, I understand the clusters. I think that's a great idea. I don't know. I want to say this the wrong way. Maybe you don't want to go to a cluster region, right? Maybe not. Maybe go where nobody else is seeing things too, as well. I think that might be a smart move. But what about talking, noise, music? Do you have to stay quiet?
That's kind of a debate that's been going on in the Sasquatch community for a while. I mean, some people say just act naturally when you're out there, talk and carry on, make noise. And eventually, if there are creatures around, they'll come and investigate to see what you're up to kind of watch you and spy on you from the woods. Other people try broadcasting different types of game calls, predator calls to try to draw them in. Some people beat on trees and howl like try to imitate a Bigfoot to draw in a response. Whatever works best for you.
Has that worked for you?
We've gotten some reply calls when we've done some calls, and we've gotten some reply knocks when we do knocks. But the problem is we don't know what they mean. So me howling out in the woods or banging on a tree, that could be like a mating call. You know, hey, I'm over here, big boy.
Your wife is a tramp.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, we don't know what it means.
You don't know what it means. You don't know what it means. And you're right about that. The other part is it seems that if you are sitting there at night and they are watching you and you would never know. So Right. You feel like you're being looked at, and that's probably going on around the perimeter. I would think, and I'm feeling pretty confident about that. In a situation like that, do you try to make friends? Do you gift?
I don't personally gift. I've never done that. I know people who have put out stuff to try to like food or fruit, apples, bananas, stuff like that, in hopes that they'll get something back in return. One thing I tell people that they may find this interesting is if there is so keep that in mind. If there is a Bigfoot around, usually what's described is the wildlife sounds stop. It goes dead quiet because the animals know that there's a large predator there, and they're not going to keep chirping and buzzing and squawking and making all the forest sounds when something large and predatory comes around. So if you hear that in the forest, there's a good possibility there's something that shouldn't be there is there.
Do you hear that? No.
Exactly.
Yeah. Let's take our break. Our guest tonight, Eric Altman. It's all Bigfoot with a little cryptozoology all night long here on show number 1999 on Fade to Black. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Subscribe to our YouTube channel to get your alerts and access to over 2,000 videos. Click that subscribe button right now. Go to jimmychurchradio.com and get the Fade to Black official podcast. 2,000 episodes, all of them commercial free for just $2 a month. This is Jimmy Church. Please visit and explore Egypt this October 3rd through the 14th, 2024 with Billy, Elizabeth, myself, and very special guest and the #1 podcaster in the world, Sean Kelly. It's simple to do. Just go to forbiddenknowledge.com and click on upcoming tours, or click on the link below. We'll see you there. Watch Into the Vortex on Gaia TV. It's Fade to Black for the screen. Simple to do. Go to Gaia.com, search Jimmy Church, or click on the link below. Follow Fade to Black on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Get all of the show updates every single day. It's now called X, but who cares? How you doing? Jimmy Church here. Special announcement. Get your Fade to Black t-shirts. That's right. Help support the show. Help support everything that we do over here. We've got 2 t-shirts. We've got 2 ways to get them. And right now, if you get a Game Changer membership for a limited time, you will get Fade to Black blend coffee with your Game Changer membership. That's right. We have 2 t-shirts. We have the original, the classic Fade to Black t-shirt. You know you want one. Post a picture, send it to us. We'll put it in our Fade to Black gallery. And we've got the new official Fade to Black t-shirt drawn by Michael Oming. 2 t-shirts, 2 ways to get them. Get yours today. Everything is in stock. Everything gets autographed. Everything includes shipping. And you're going to get a tracking number. And with a Game Changer membership, you get an email to me. You get unlimited commercial-free downloads of the show. Those are uploaded every single night after the show to the website. So don't delay. Get your Fade to Black t-shirt today. Go Backley Tappy. Go to jimmychurchradio.com and become a Fadernaut. Get a membership. That's right. Everything is commercial free. You have access to downloads, and you get to call yourself a Fadernaut. River Moon Coffee, makers of the Fade to Black blend. Truly the best coffee on planet Earth. Just visit rivermoonwellness.com or their Amazon store. It's all simple to do. You can check out the Fade to Black blend, the Game Changer blend, or any of their Black Moon Wellness products. It's the only coffee I drink. It is the best, and it's Doc. Again, rivermoonwellness.com. All right. Welcome back, Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Eric Altman is with us. It's, I was going to say it's all Bigfoot all night long. It's not. We're going to talk about some other stuff too, including cryptids. Eric, I wanted to ask, what should I have in my Bigfoot bug out research backpack?
Well, some of the essential things that you probably should carry, a flashlight, a measuring tape. It's always great to have a measuring tape on hand because you never know when you're going to find something in the woods that is questionable and you need to take measurements of it. A notepad and pen so you can document things. If you want to get a DNA kit, you can find them on Amazon. They do sell them. I carry like a little pair of sterilized tweezers, a little plastic baggie, some paper envelopes that if I do find here, I can put that in there in the envelope and then put it in the plastic baggie to keep it dry. Latex gloves are a huge thing, so you don't contaminate any evidence. And you can take your choice of recording equipment, whether it be night vision, digital audio recorders, binoculars. I carry a thermal FLIR with me. That's a great tool to use in the forest. I know not everybody can afford them, but they are coming down in price. So if you are able to get one, I suggest taking one with you because it allows you to see heat signatures in the forest. So if you hear something, you can pan even day or night and see what that sound was. You see if there's a heat signature associated with it. So you can pack and build your own research kit to your own liking. There's no really set guidelines as to what you should have, but there are some things that I think would be helpful. Like I said, notepad and pen, measuring tape, maybe something to collect evidence if you find something out there, a Ziploc baggie, some envelopes, tweezers, gloves, stuff like that. A camera. People take their cell phones, but always have a backup camera. I would strongly suggest if you can get a camera that holds 35 millimeter film, even though they're old and outdated, take pictures with that, because if you're trying to prove that there's something in those pictures, they can identify the negatives a lot easier and see if it's been tampered with. And rather than digital, digital's great and everything, but 35 millimeter would be the way to go for me.
And what about signs? Are there territory? We always see the X's with the trees and things. And we see evidence of that. Is there stuff that you should look for to know that you're entering into a Bigfoot area?
To be perfectly honest, I'm not a big tree formation guy. I find them, and I found them, and I see the X's and the stackings. They're intriguing, but no one that I know of, and any of the reports that I've investigated or either talking to other researchers, have ever seen a Bigfoot making one of those. So I don't know if those are legitimate structures or communication device. I don't know. Up in I know in Alaska, there have been reports and people have actually videotaped and filmed trees that have been pulled up by their roots, turned upside down and stuck in the ground with the root ball sticking up way up in the air. And these are 10 to 15 foot high trees. It would take something of enormous size, strength to do that. But nobody's ever seen a Bigfoot do it. So we don't know if that's actually happening, being caused by a Bigfoot. They're perplexing, and it really makes you question what the heck could do something like that. But I don't know if they're these X's that are being found or signs or markers or what they are. I would say probably 75 to 80% of them could be ruled out as wind damage, wind blown, weather related, even people out there building things in the woods just for fun. We just don't know if the Bigfoot are doing this or not. So I've never been a really big structure guy. I find them compelling and interesting, but I can't say that they relate to Bigfoot.
And what do you look for?
I look for, like I mentioned, the habitat, water sources, good food source, cover, that sort of thing, and a history of reports in the area. I always do my research. If somebody calls me and says they have had a sighting and they want me to come out and check, I'll go out and talk to the witness and document that sighting, but then I'll go back and look at the history and see if there's been any other documented reports within, maybe a 10-mile radius of that area. And that gives me an idea that there could be something still lurking around out there. So I think it's important to always do your history, check your history, and, see where the documented reports are. If you find a cluster and there's a sighting that happens recently, focus on that area, because they may not be there when you go that time, but historically they've been there. Recently they've been there. So chances are they could still be in the area.
I did many trips now up from, like I said, Northern California all the way up to the Canadian border. And what I noticed was that every gas station that you pull into has got a rack of Bigfoot t-shirts, right?
Yeah.
They don't have a rack of UFO t-shirts, right? And it's not one gas, it's everywhere. Then they have the Bigfoot museums and the Bigfoot gift shops and the tourist destinations. It's all over the West Coast. And you don't see that with UFOs. The Bigfoot community is really, really big, isn't it?
It's more accepted in the Pacific Northwest. I mean, we don't have a lot of Bigfoot places here in the East Coast. I mean, there's a few that have popped up here and there, and I think that's because it's becoming so popular. Before, in the 1990s, the 1980s and stuff, there wasn't very much at all in the East Coast. I mean, now it's cool, it's accepted, and people want those knickknacks and the T-shirts. And in the Pacific Northwest, it's been like that for decades.
It's crazy. It's great. I went to this is like 4 years ago, and I'm up there, and I go to, and I'm sure you've been there. I forget the highway, but there's this big Bigfoot museum souvenir shop off of the freeway. It's huge. It's 1,000 Bigfoot statues out front, and it's just this ginormous, huge parking lot. So we go, and at the time I'm hosting Coast to Coast, right? I'm pretty cocky, and I'm walking around, and I go up to the cash register. I buy a bunch of stuff, right? I go up to the cash register, and I said, "So who's the manager?" She goes, "I am. I own this place." I said, "Oh, really?" "I'm Jimmy Church from Coast to Coast." She goes, "What's that?" And I go, "You own this Bigfoot stand for how long?" She goes, 40 years. 40 years.
No idea.
You don't know what Coast to Coast is. No, what is that? I said, "Never mind. I'm not getting into it," and just walked away. That's the Bigfoot community, right? It's like it's huge, it's ginormous, but they don't like to mix with that UFO world, right? There's a line in the sand, isn't there?
Yeah. The UFO community doesn't like to incorporate the Bigfoot community.
I disagree with that. I disagree. I'm not debating you. I appreciate your opinion, but the UFO community is totally cool with Bigfoot and the possibility that there is a connection here. We're totally okay with that and exploring it. Not in the Bigfoot community, man.
Yeah.
No. We're not mixing UFOs in with this. Yeah. That's the red line, right? That's the red line right there. Why do you think that is?
I think the majority of the Bigfoot community believe that this is just an undiscovered primate. It has nothing to do with UFOs. It has nothing to do with the paranormal, and they stand their ground on it. There's a lot of good friends of mine across the country are researchers, and they're flesh and blood advocates, and they will not They will not even entertain the possibility of it being interdimensional or alien related or any other kind of paranormal phenomenon related to it. It's just an undiscovered primate, and that's the bottom line.
That's where they stay. And then we have these sightings. You've got a light in the sky and Bigfoot in the same area on the same night. Mm-hmm. But there's no connection. Right? No, I'm not so sure. Now, I'm not saying there is, but it's worth a discussion, isn't it?
Yeah, I would think so. I know here in Pennsylvania in the early 1970s, 1973, 74, Stan Gordon, who I mentioned earlier, he was investigating a long flap of Bigfoot sightings. And some of those cases were actually intertwined with UFOs being seen in the same vicinity, the same time. I mentioned one report of a Bigfoot coming down the ramp of a UFO. There were a lot of reports like that in the 70s, and there's still some reports that float around from time to time with the two intertwined. But for the most part, the Bigfoot research community just has that one train of thought. It's what it is, and they don't entertain any outside possibilities. And many of them have gone on record to say, you can't solve a mystery with another mystery. In other words, you can't prove Bigfoot with UFOs, so why bother incorporating them together? And there's a lot of people that are very staunch on that and refuse to even entertain the possibility.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, I don't have a response. that's a really, 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 really good point. Has there been, let's talk about some cases for a second, and then I want to talk about some ghosts.
Sure.
Has there been a documented case of a Bigfoot attack on a human?
There are some much older reports that have been around in the database of Bigfoot attacking people. Not here in Pennsylvania, nothing that I'm aware of, but like the Mount St. Helens Ape Canyon event in 1924, where Fred Beck and several members of his prospecting party were attacked by a tribe, if you want to call it that, a group of Bigfoot that tried to break into their mountain cabin while they were prospecting. Albert Altman was supposedly, he claims he was kidnapped by a Bigfoot in 1924 in the Toba Inlet in British Columbia and taken way off into the mountains and kept hostage for 7 days with a family of Bigfoot. And of course, there's the famous Bauman story that was written by our former president, Teddy Roosevelt, in the Wilderness Hunter book, where he writes about Bauman was a trapper in the 1850s. And he claims that he and a trapping partner were stalked by a Bigfoot, and his trapping partner was killed by a Bigfoot, had his neck broken with large fang marks in the side of his neck. So there are historical reports of Bigfoot being aggressive and attacking people. There have been people reporting being bluff charged by Bigfoot, where the creature just comes at them and at the last second it backs off for some reason. And that's a primate behavior. But I don't know of anything recent in the last 5-10 years of anybody being reported being attacked by a Bigfoot. Usually the case is the Bigfoot sighted, the person goes one way and the Bigfoot goes the other way. So it's kind of,
so Bigfoot is E.T. It's the same thing with E.T., right? It's weird, like the abductions and the thing that's kind of gone away, right? In the modern sense. So we've made the connection. You've crossed over. You're now with us. You're now with us, Eric. What do you make of Ron Moorhead and the samurai sounds? I mean, to this day, it's something that just fascinates me when I hear it. And what a cool guy too as well.
Yeah, Ron is a great guy.
Yeah, great guy. What do you really nice teeth, by the way? That guy's got amazing teeth. What do you make of the samurai sounds? I almost hold those at the same level as the Patterson Gimlin films. Pretty incredible.
Yeah, they're pretty compelling evidence for sure. and he's really the only one that I know of that has recordings like that. Other people have put stuff out. Some of it's been hoaxed or faked, but his recordings have been documented and studied at universities to find out if they were faked or they've had the Foreman track studied on it, and they're very compelling. He's had a cryptolinguist actually try to decipher what the language was in those recordings, and he says they're a viable language. It's not a human language. It's nothing this guy's ever heard before, but there are consonants and syllables and words being said. I'm very impressed with the recordings. I can't say that they're Bigfoot, because as far as I know, what Ron has told me is that he felt there were Bigfoot around the campground, but nothing was ever recorded video-wise showing these Bigfoot speaking and making the sound.
No, he kept right. Yeah. I mean, he's told the story many times to you and myself, and so many times, but he wanted to see he's running outside looking, and he could again, we're just repeating what he has said over and over again. And if you want to listen to Ron Moorhead, you can listen to him on this show or your stuff or other movies and documentaries. But that's what he wanted. And so he would hear the chatter, they're recording, and they're running outside. He could tell that they were right there. You can zero in, but he never quite.
Yeah. He claims that he saw something moving very quickly through the trees, but he couldn't really identify what it was. But he's convinced, as far as I'm aware, and I haven't talked to Ron in a couple of months, but as far as I'm aware, he's convinced that that's what they are Bigfoot. They never been able to prove them as fake or any kind of other animal. And they're very compelling. They really are. And if anybody has not heard the Sierra Sounds, you can find them on any podcast interview with him. He has his own CDs out that he's released for sale. You can find samples of them on YouTube and other various social media sites. If you just Google Sierra Sounds, you can find them. They're very
I remember, then we'll move on. So this is like 20 years ago, 30 years ago, maybe. It's late at night, probably coast to coast or something. I'm in the dark and got the radio on, and I'm lying in bed, and Ron's doing an interview. It's probably Art Bell. Anyway, and started rolling those tapes, and I'm in the dark, and I'm like this.
Yeah.
What? I mean, that sounded like a conversation that was almost an argument. That's what it sounded like to me. Yeah. That's the vibe that I got. But I'm sitting there in the dark going, this right now, this is not fake. No, that's real. That's real. That is real. And if you're a human, let's say you're Ron Moorhead, and I just don't think that he's deceptive at all. You can tell his demeanor. He's not that kind of person. But what kind of efforts would you have to go through to practice and rehearse something that you can't goof up?
That's
right?
a good point. Yeah.
Right.
Good point.
Because too many smart people out there, too many linguists, too many just smart people are going to bust you. Right. And that was an unbustable situation. That was, man, I'm telling you, I had a rough night that night, man, in the dark, just listening to that, because you could hear the forest, you could hear everything that was going on, and you can hear that. And that's what it sounded like. It sounded like frustration. That's a good word. Frustration.
Sounds like a male and a female arguing with each other.
I didn't want to go there, but you just did. But yeah, have you ever heard anything close to that?
Yes and no. I've heard voices in the woods that almost sound like something is talking, but it's mumbling. You can't make out what is being said. And I've heard that on a couple of occasions in the Chestnut Ridge. Other researchers have been with me. We've heard that. We call it mumbling because it sounds like a conversation is being carried on and two people are talking. but you can't make out what they're saying. It's like, and it's not loud. It's quiet and distant, and you can hear it. And when we try to go find out where it's coming from, the noises stop. So I don't know if it's related to that or not. I really have an explanation what the mumbling sounds are, but I've heard them on a couple different occasions, and it's really creepy, I'll tell you.
Man, I'm not down with that. I'm not. Well, see, but you know why I want to go squatching is there's nothing to be scared of. Okay, we haven't been presented with, a family that's camping that's been mauled to death by Bigfoot, right? We don't have those, right? We don't have those reports
that we know of.
Right. So that's why I'm okay with it. But I don't know if I would chase down mumbling in the woods. I'd rather have it come to me.
Well, I always, as long as I've been doing this, I've always wanted to find out what is responsible for these things that I'm experiencing and hearing. So I throw caution to the wind, and I got to see what it is. So it's more like a dangerous curiosity, because I hear something, I see something, I go after it. I want to see what it is, or at least try to see what it is. Most of the time, I'm not fast enough. I'm old and fat, so I can't move around in the woods like I used to.
I hear you. Yeah, but that's my problem. Bigfoot would chase me down.
Yep.
And have fun with me and toss me around.
Yep.
I was on Christina Gomez's show earlier today. We do a show every week together called Mysteries with History. And today I wanted to ask you about this. I don't want this to get away from me. Today we did a show about things that live underground. Okay. And people, reptilians, Bigfoot, cryptids, we talked about all of these things. And I brought up with her, maybe she brought it up with me, where you live. That area from Gatlinburg up to the Canadian border, right? The Appalachian Trail, that whole area is one giant cave, right? There's just caves everywhere.
Yeah.
Interlocking, interweaving, connected underground. The Black Onyx Cave and the Mammoth Cave. I don't think we've ever gotten to the end of those things. They're ginormous. Mm-hmm. What do you make of that? Is that a Bigfoot habitat, do you think?
I don't know of many reports of Bigfoot being seen around caves. It's not out of the realm of possibility. If these creatures do exist, it's perfect shelter for them, because it's a constant temperature. They can get out of the elements. They can hide, because not many people go into caves. There are cavers, but for the most part, the general public just go out and I'm going to this cave. It doesn't happen. But here in the Chestnut Ridge, where I live, we've got 30 or 40 caves.
Right.
So they're everywhere. And some of them are interlocked, and they just go on for miles and miles and miles. And logically, if you don't want to be seen and you want to move from one place to another, and about these caves, that's the perfect, safest place to go into the cave system, move from one place to another without being seen or noticed, and come up somewhere else.
Right. And that was the point that her and I were making today, that naturally, if you're living in that environment, naturally you would know that highway system. Mm-hmm. Right? You would know it. And in the Pacific Northwest, where you have all those volcanoes and all those lava tubes, every mountain in the Pacific Northwest is a dormant volcano, right? Everywhere you look, they're all over the place. And with lava tubes that are interconnecting. And that's one of the biggest Bigfoot sighting areas in the world. And I would think that you would understand that network and that, like I said, that highway system.
Yeah, absolutely. If the forest is what you call home, and you're accustomed to going into the cave for shelter and exploring on your own, you get to learn those things pretty quickly and use those as your own transportation, back and forth. And Like I said, you stay undetected. You're safe from the elements. You can store food in there. It makes a great place to live. We live in houses, so why couldn't Bigfoot live in caves?
Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. Speaking of houses, your house is haunted.
Yes, it is.
I've been looking. You have ghosts. I've been watching them in the background.
That's my son.
Oh, okay. He's transparent.
Yeah.
So, your house is mine's haunted too as well.
Yeah. We moved into this house in 2017, and we live in a suburban neighborhood. I mean, it's your typical, 2-story homes. There's nothing fancy about it. I don't know of any coal mining systems underneath us, but we do have a running spring in our backyard. It just looked like a very warm, friendly neighborhood. We bought the house, we moved in. Probably within the first couple of days while we were unpacking, the first thing happened, and I was in the kitchen putting utensils away and dishes away, and I heard a crash in one of the back bedrooms. And thinking it was my cat or my dog maybe knocked a box over, I went to investigate, and nothing was knocked over. And I thought that was a little peculiar, but I didn't pay much attention to it. And it was probably about the first or second week that we were sleeping in the house. About 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm woken up by the sound of a door opening and shutting, footsteps going down our hallway from the bedroom towards our staircase. And I thought my son was up, and I called out his name, and I didn't get an answer. And I called out his name again a little louder and still didn't get an answer. So I figured I'm going to go see. And I could hear the footsteps go down the stairs and down into our finished basement, and I heard our garage door shut. I thought, okay, if it's not my son, somebody's in our house and shouldn't be here. So I charged down. This is where it gets really weird. I charged down the steps. I didn't see anybody. The finished basement lights are off. I go in the garage. The garage door was shut. I went in the garage. The lights are out. And I looked around. I turned the lights on in the garage. Nobody's in the garage. I come back into the finished basement. The lights were out when I went into the garage. Now the basement lights in the finished basement are all on. And I didn't turn them on. My son is not in the finished basement. There's nobody around. I thought, okay, that's kind of weird. So I went back to bed, and I asked my wife. I woke her up and I said, "Did you hear anything?" She said, "No, I was sleeping. I didn't hear it." So I kind of, just played it off, and maybe I was just dreaming it. Well, shortly after that, the knocks on the wall started, and it was on the headboard of our bed, on our bedroom wall. Doors would start shutting and opening. Lights were coming on and off. TVs would start coming on and off by themselves. I would hear things crash in the house there was no explanation for it. In 2019, this was in October of 2019, my wife were on her in bed. My son's in his bedroom sleeping. We hear this huge crash in our kitchen. I mean, it was just earth-shattering. Get up to go into the kitchen to find out what's going on. My wife goes in there first, and she lets out an expletive, holy. And I heard her, and my son was woken up. He went into the kitchen. I heard him say the same thing, holy. And I thought, okay, well, this is bad. I better get up and go see what had happened. So I walk into the kitchen, and one of our kitchen cabinets had been pulled off of the wall and dropped into the middle of the floor. And I have pictures and video of it. I just stood there stunned. I was like, this can't be happening. But sure enough, 5 feet away from the wall, laying on the middle of the kitchen floor, was one of our kitchen cabinets that pulled right off the wall. And stuff like this went on for, 3 or 4 or 5 years. Things have died down in the house since we had a couple people come in and do some blessings, but we still get the knocks on the wall. The TVs come off and on by themselves. Our dogs will stare at nothing and growl and bark, and we're convinced they're seeing something that we're not seeing. Occasionally we'll hear the footsteps go down the hall like they've done before. Doors will slam shut, and there's nobody in the house but me. And I'm like, okay, where'd that come from? And I'll go check the doors. They're all open or they're all shut. There's weird poltergeist-like activity that's gone on in our house since we moved in 2017. We did talk to the neighbors, and I did a search online to find out if anybody died in the house. No one has passed away in the house. Nobody has died. When we talked to the neighbors, they weren't aware of anything going on in the house. We did find out there had been a couple suicides on our street that took place prior to us moving in. And then One took place in 2021, a couple houses down from us. So I know that there's been some tragedy in the neighborhood, but we can't find an explanation as for why all the paranormal poltergeist-like activity that still goes on. Like I said, TVs come on. I'll be sitting here. I'm surprised the TV to my left hasn't come on when I'm talking to you. It's just annoying, things like that.
Eric, this is what's nuts, is everything that you just said, word for word, from unpacking boxes when you first moved in to right now, is what has happened to my house, and this audience listens to me talk about it every night.
Wow. Wow.
They're sitting there going, okay, all right, when's Jimmy going to jump in? When's Jimmy going to jump in? But here's the crazy part. I just peed on myself just a little bit. Down below me, right here, I have 3 computers underneath me, right? Mm-hmm. This computer here, I have 2 over here, 1 here. This one here has a glass side, and it's got all these fancy lights on the inside of it, right? Mm-hmm. And it's been sitting here dark. When you said at that moment that you walked in and the kitchen cabinet was in the middle of the floor, as I went, holy crap, my computer lit up. Blink! Right as you said that, and I'm serious, I just jumped out of my skin. I was like, man, that wasn't cool. That's what I was looking at. I was looking down at the computer like, man, that was not perfect timing. This is listening to you right now. The only thing I didn't hear you say, because I went through all of that, day 2 when I'm unpacking boxes is when things started here. And when I started to hear stuff throughout the house, I live alone. Okay, so I don't have a wife or a son to blame it on, or a cat or a dog. I don't, right? At least you've got something to keep your head in check. I don't have that. I'm by myself. And if a noise goes on here, it ain't me, right? So it's something else. Okay, so, but when that started to go on, the one thing you didn't mention that I started doing is I started talking to the ghost. I found myself doing that, like saying stupid shit. I mean, really stupid stuff. Like, I'm not going to get up. I'm not going to go and look. And I'm saying this out loud, and I'm thinking to myself, Church, are you listening to yourself? Right now, are you listening to yourself and what you are going through? But this stuff is real. Did you talk to the ghost? Did you say, okay, what's going on? You're not freaking me out.
There were points where I wasn't sleeping for nights on end because we'd hear that knocking on the headboard or the wall behind our bed, and it would wake me up all throughout the night. And my wife at first didn't hear it. So when she finally started hearing it, it would wake me up, and I'd be like, do you mind? I'm trying to sleep. I have to work in the morning.
What kind of knock? Like,
it would be like a...
Oh man, screw that.
Like loud. I'm not talking just a real faint. It was like pounding, like someone was taking their fist and pounding on the headboard. And it sounded like a fist, not a hammer, not a baseball bat, not my dog scratching the wall. It was like something mad was pounding on the headboard, the wall, in the hallway. I've been in the bathroom taking a shower and door shut. Nobody's home but me. My wife's working. My son's at his girlfriend's house, and I'll hear on the door.
Oh man, no man, put that house on the market.
Yeah, and I'd be like, okay, there's nobody in the house but me. My dogs don't knock on the door, so I'd get out of the shower and I'd open the door and look, and there's nobody in the hallway.
Right.
So it didn't scare me because I've been a paranormal enthusiast for a long time. I've watched all the documentaries, the TV shows, the movies. I've read hundreds of books on the subject. So I'm interested in the subject. I don't go in a ghost hunt. That's one thing I don't do, but it fascinates me. So it didn't scare me, but it really kind of gave me that holy crap moment. This is real when it started happening in my house.
Right.
because I mean,
So,
I read this stuff, I was all familiar with everything that people talk about in classic hauntings, poltergeist hauntings, stuff like that going on. And then when it happens in your own house and you're experiencing it, it's a whole nother level.
It just got so frequent for me that I just tossed up my hands. What are you going to do? And I didn't want to piss anything off. And I just like you, I've got friends in the community. I've got psychic medium friends. I have ghosts. I know everybody, right? And they've all offered their services. And I thought to myself, plus I have motion sensor cameras. I have kits. I have all that stuff. And do I want to catch this stuff on tape? No, I don't. I don't want to see it. I don't want to be confident. No, I don't. And I decided not to have a cleansing or a blessing or any of that I just want to live with it. I haven't had a book hit me in the head, right? Mm-hmm. It's nothing like that has happened. Yeah. But you chose to do that. Mm-hmm. So, and you said things have trailed off. Who did you have come over and what did they do?
I had 5 or 6 paranormal groups that I know come and do investigations. Mm-hmm. And in 2 or 3 of those groups, they had a psychic medium, and one was actually 2 of them were ordained ministers. So I had them walk through the house and do a house blessing, and I had them walk on the property around the outside of the house and do a house blessing or a property blessing. The second time it was done by a medium. She's an ordained minister as well, and she did it, and that slowed things down tremendously. It wasn't happening every night or every other night. It slowed down to the point where it was like coming on once in a month, once in every couple months, and now it happens. It amps up sometimes, and we get 3 or 4 things happen, and then it stops. And what I mean by that is like we have a coat rack in our entranceway, our foyer, when you walk in the front door. My wife and I are in the basement watching TV in our finished basement. My son's in his bedroom. The coat rack, there's nothing heavy on it to cause it to fall. It came off the wall and dropped. I had to go and pound all the nails and all the hooks and everything and get it back mounted to the wall. It was sturdy, stable. I think we had 1 or 2 coats on it and maybe a baseball cap. And 2 weeks later, the same thing came right off the wall. And I anchored that thing so tight.
I did the same thing. Okay, so check this out. See this camera view? Mm-hmm. Okay. You see that? Yep. That I want to believe poster? Mm-hmm. That is mounted to, that's a wooden board, soundboard, right? Acoustic thing. This is hard. Okay?
Yep.
That's wood. This, you hear that? Mm-hmm. That's foam core, and it's mounted. Okay, so it's thick. It's not a poster.
Right.
It's a poster that's professionally mounted with the framing on the back, and so you can hang it, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so, and you can see it's about, this is a table here, and there's 2 computers, right? You can't really see, but anyway. So I walk in, and you see all the guitars, right? There's a row of guitars here. Okay. So I come into my studio, and that poster, which is mounted to that board, is down behind the computer. And I stopped, and I looked, and it just didn't look right to me, right? I was like, oh, wait. How did that, what? And I go over, and on the back, the professional, and I said professional, I didn't do it, right? A framing store did this. The plastic thing that's double sticky foam taped to the back of the foam core, right, with a hook on the top. It's about this big, and it's thick like a credit card. It's real thick. Is broken in half. And I'm looking at that. How did that break? And then I look, and the other half, the hook is on the floor right here, which I still have. I saved it. And it's thick like a credit card. And I'm serious. I'm looking at that and looking, how did that break? What? So I take the thing and I redouble sticky, did this thing, and then now it's mounted. It's not going anywhere, right? So after I do that and I mount it back up, this is like a month after I moved in the house. I spin around and I look this way. Okay. Now you can't see, but you see that Marshall guitar amp?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Right there, that's a workbench for my guitars. I've got a couple of guitars, in case you didn't notice. Underneath that is a toolbox where the extra, I have a black foam core that I had cut to shape some stuff and block out some windows upstairs. So I took the extra foam core, leaned it against the wall, underneath that, and pushed the toolboxes up against it. Okay, so it wouldn't flip down and move. That simple. So I do that with this, and I spin around in my chair, and I look in the middle of the floor right there is the black foam core. It moved like 8 feet, and it's sitting in the middle of the floor. Wow. And I picked it up, and I put it back, and I'm serious. I was like, Eric, I'm not kidding. I'm thinking to myself, you've got something to deal with here.
Yeah.
You know, you're going to talk about this on the air. You're going to tell people, and you are going to sound like the crazy ass people that you interview.
Yeah.
Right. But this stuff is happening, you know, and so I just chose to just back off and go, okay, cool. All right. Okay. All right. You're not freaking me out. And that's my way of dealing with it. But it's poltergeist. And I did the same thing, by the way. Ask all my neighbors. I did. So, what were the families like? Right? That lived in my house. You know, anything strange go on? No, they were cool. You know, I did the same exact thing that you did. Nothing strange that I can find. You sounded like you were telling the same story. Everything that you said, I have said on the show and went through that same experience.
Now, as I mentioned, I had a couple paranormal teams come in, and I don't ghost hunt myself, but I lecture at different events across the country, and some of these locations have been famous haunted locations, like the Buffalo Haunted Terminal. I've been to Pennhurst Asylum, a whole bunch of different places that have been supposedly haunted, and they do events there. I lecture, and then I go on their little ghost hunt, and you know, just for shits and giggles. And one of the paranormal teams suggested maybe something attached itself to me and followed me home. I don't know. I really don't. I don't have an explanation for it. But like I said, these things still happen in the house, but in such a less frequency now anymore. It's like I say to my wife, hey, something weird happened today. And I'll tell her, she's like, oh, here we go again. And 3 or 4 things will happen, and then it'll get quiet for a while. One thing that happened, I'll share with you real quick. I was away at an event in Ohio. My son messaged me and said, hey, Dad, I think the kids are playing with the doorbell. And I said, what do you mean? He said, well, I'm in my room watching TV. I'm laying on my bed, and I hear the doorbell. And I think kids are doing the ding-dong ditch thing. You know, they push the doorbell and run away. And I said, well, that's not possible. He said, why not? I said, our doorbell doesn't work. And he said, well, didn't you put a temporary doorbell in? I said, I tried to. The batteries died in the doorbell that sits inside the house. It doesn't work. I haven't changed the batteries. It hasn't worked in a couple of years. He said, Dad, the doorbell rang. I heard somebody push that doorbell. I said, all right, well, let me check the cameras. We have a front porch camera. We have a camera over our driveway. I look at the cameras. Nobody's been to the house. Nobody. But yet my son says, clear as day, that doorbell went ding dong, ding dong, ding dong, ding dong, like somebody was pushing it and running off. Stuff like that happens all the time. And I'm not saying in frequency like every day, but weird stuff like that has happened in this house since we moved into 2017. When it happens, it's 3 or 4 things happen right away, and then it quits.
I haven't. I've got the same thing, right? I've got motion sensor cameras on all sides of my house, all corners and front and back. Okay,
Yep,
I've got
me too.
6. I have 6. So just letting everybody know there's 6, and you cannot approach my house from any side without having the sensors go off. hummingbirds trip them all the time, right? And I'll watch the hummingbirds on my phone. But I haven't caught anything yet. The other part with it is that how do I say this? I started to, and it still happens, but now I just ignore it. I started to see stuff in my peripheral vision, right? And I didn't want to just like lose my mind. I didn't want to freak myself out. I live alone, and it's too easy. I don't want to be Jack Nicholson in The Shining, right? I don't want to snap. But from my back family room in the back of the house, if you sit in and face the TV, you've got a pretty good panoramic view through the kitchen into the dining room, out into the foyer. You can kind of see the front room. You can see this hallway. You can see, you got a pretty good panoramic view, right? Okay, the house is open. Sit there and I'll be watching TV, and I'll see shit. I'll see it, and I used to look. I don't anymore. It's like that. I just like, whatever.
Yeah, I've become accustomed to stuff happening. So it's just like, oh, here we go again.
Yeah. It's so weird how I'm okay with, okay, I'll share you the funniest story that I have. And I'll make this quick. Let me see if you can see it. You can't see it through this shot. Okay, but anyway, there's a doorway here, and you go down this hallway, and then there's another hallway that goes to the back half of the house. And I have a studio back there. Not a radio. This is my radio studio, but I have a music studio back there with drums and guitars and amps and PA system and stuff. Me and my friends can jam. At the end of that hallway, that door, the studio door, is a double door. It's not a single door. It's a double door that opens, and I keep it open, right? So it's a big double door going into the studio. In front of that is a bathroom, and the bathroom has an angled door. It's not flat against the hallway, right? It's angled. So when you're walking down and you're looking at the double doors, you have to round the corner. Okay, so when you walk into the bathroom, and here's the toilet, there's a big mirror. In the mirror, you can look out because the door is angled. You can look through the double doors behind you into the studio, right? Okay, so after the show, I go to the bathroom. I walk down the hall. I walk into the bathroom, and I turn on the light, and I'm looking at myself in the mirror like normal people do, right? Okay. Behind me, over my shoulder, in the studio, this shadow walks right behind me, walks through the room, and I scream, and I jump backwards. I fall into the door, and I think I peed all over the mirror. But anyway, I gather myself, and I mean, I screamed. I admit it. I screamed. Ah! And I go out into the hallway. I turn on the hallway light. I go into the studio expecting something, and there's nothing there. And now that's the story. There's nothing else to add to it. That's the story. But I can tell you that the lights now, I have night lights that are automatic in the hallway. I turn on the hallway light, and I light up this thing like a candle when I'm going down that hallway at night. What I
don't blame you. I would too.
This thing, the shadow, right behind me, man, right behind me in that room. Yeah. And I saw it too. That's the other thing. Eric, I want to be very clear. This wasn't peripheral vision. This wasn't right. No, I'm looking right at it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was crazy.
I haven't seen anything in my house, fortunately. So
where can everybody follow your stuff?
A couple different places. PABigfoot.com is our website for the Pennsylvania Bigfoot Society. EricAltman.net is my personal website, and I'm all over social media, Eric H. Altman. Pennsylvania Crypto Society, PACryptosociety.com for that website. There's a whole bunch of places you can find.
What about your camping adventure? Where can everybody sign up for that?
Yeah, PABigfootCampingAdventure.com. It's coming up September 6th and 7th. It's going to be in the Chestnut Ridge in Pennsylvania. So if you want to learn more about Bigfoot and hear some great guest speakers, meet some guests, celebrity guests and stuff, you're welcome to come out and join us. Man,
that sounds so awesome. I'm going to be in Alaska that week. Otherwise, I'd be out there hanging out with you guys, squatching.
You're welcome anytime.
Eric, thank you so much. Perfect night on the show, my man. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me on, Jimmy. Appreciate it.
Show number 1999 with Eric Altman. Thank you, Eric. Be safe out there.
Have a good night.
Perfect show. Man, oh, what a perfect show. Show number 1999, and I got to do it with Eric Altman, and that was indeed special. Thank you so much, Eric. Yes, it is PABigfoot.com. You could head straight there. And what is going on with my audio? My show's not playing. Why not? I don't know. Okay, hold on for a second. Let's go back here. Wow, that's weird. I don't have any. Oh, there it is. Man, I've got too many buttons to press here in the studio. Too many buttons to press here at Fade to Black. All right, today is my Friday. I've got a busy weekend in front of me, but on Monday is our 2000th show celebration. That will be coming up this Monday. I've got a bunch of special guests and friends, and we're just going to hang out and celebrate with you all night long. All right, so everybody have a great, safe, fun, and amazing weekend. Fade to Black is produced by Hilton J. Palm, Renee Newman, and Michelle Freed. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Jonaside. Thank you, Jessica. Thank you, Dex. Thank you, Dennis. Thank you, Kevin. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music, Doug Aldrich. Intro, Spaceboy, spaceboymusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network, and this broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2024 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network, Inc. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Until Monday, show number 2000, I want you to be safe. Go Backley Tappy.